everybody, and welcome to the Paranormal Portal. I'm your host, Brent Thomas. Thank you so much for joining us today. We've got an epic show ahead, but just remember, if any of you have experiences you'd like to share, I'd love to hear from you. You can either email me at paranormalportalradio@gmail.com or head over to paranormalportal.net. Scroll down and find the button that says Interview Me, and that'll allow you to look at a calendar of possible times and dates and find a date that works for you. Love to hear your stories, so definitely get in touch with me. Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Paranormal Portal. I am your host, Brent Thomas, and thank you so much for joining us. I had recently done a podcast episode about disappearing places. And I know that we don't do a whole lot of strange phenomena on the show, but it's certainly something that I'm absolutely interested in. And I think it's a big part of what makes up this paranormal world that we live in. I think there's a lot going on, and I don't pretend to understand, the nature of it all or what does it mean. But I think it's pretty safe to say that these events definitely show us that the world is not quite what we believe it is. Or at least it's not only what we believe it is, that there's so much more going on in these situations where, in this case, these places appeared, people were able to visit them, and then somehow at a later time, whether it's a day or a week or whatever, just seems to be gone. It doesn't exist anymore. And it seems to me that these events seem to demonstrate some kind of phenomena that's maybe potentially best described as maybe dimensional, or some kind of gateways that people inadvertently pass through and pass back out of again, but are maybe not completely in this world. Maybe they're in another version of this world for some time or by some measure that we can't possibly understand. I've covered tons of stories very similar to this. Most of these disappearing places, I think, is absolutely compelling because people not only visit these places, but they have interactions and they have experiences that seem to be kind of out of this world. And they don't seem to understand that something happened in most cases. The transition seems seamless from their normal everyday life into these extraordinary circumstances. Is there some gateways that open and close? Is it intentional? Is this an intelligent phenomena? In some cases, it really seems to be very intelligent and very aimed and directed towards these individuals that experience it. In others, it just seems more random and just happenstance. So whatever the case is, this phenomena is incredibly interesting, and it did. Again, I can't speak to the veracity of these claims or the authenticity of them, but they are represented as true events, and that's the spirit in which I'm giving them to you. This isn't a show about convincing anyone that this phenomena is happening as it's reported by the material we cover, but it is representing the fact that we live in a world of possibilities, and people are experiencing a lot of stuff that they just can't explain. And it seems to defy our understanding of the nature of reality that we are so accustomed to. So I hope you guys enjoy this supplemental episode of these disappearing places, and let me know what you think. Email me at paranormalportalradio@gmail.com. I'd love to know your thoughts, or if there's other stories. If you have an experience with a disappearing place, I'd love to hear from you as well. I know that I've experienced what I can only call like a spatial slip, where somehow it seems like I hopscotched over an area that was potentially dangerous and found myself well beyond it in the safe, in another safe zone. So, for more information, you'll have to refer to either the live shows on YouTube where I've talked about it several times, or perhaps in some interviews that I've done on other shows. But, in the spirit of not being redundant, I'm not going to repeat my episode or my experience every time that it comes up. But, I think it's very interesting. I think I experienced something extraordinary. Again, I don't understand it. I don't remember anything changing other than suddenly I was in a different part of a journey than where I expected to be, by significantly, pretty significant distance, like a couple or 3 miles that suddenly I hopscotched over. And, it was pretty compelling. But if any of you have experiences like that, I'd love to hear from you. Please reach out to me at paranormalportalradio@gmail.com or visit paranormalportal.net. And click on the interview me if you want to come on the show and tell your stories. I'd love to talk to you. So first up on our journey today, we're going to be referencing some Reddit comments that were compiled in an article on ranker.com. And this is also an article that we used quite a bit during the last episode as well, where I dealt with disappearing places. And this is a Ranker article called Encounters with Vanishing Places. And it was compiled by Samantha Dillinger from 2021. So this has been a fascinating article, and it's very well done. And I would encourage you to check out ranker.com because they really have articles, pretty much any interest that you have. You'll find articles and discussions about those things. So definitely visit ranker.com and support what they're doing over there because they're really incredibly well done. So this first one that we're going to cover is called We Looked It Up on Google Maps, but Google couldn't find it. And this is submitted by Redditor Peachy Riley, Rilee. Says, my ex-girlfriend and I decided to have a sleepover. We're both girls, so this was allowed. She came over and we decided that around 9 at night, we would go on a walk, and my stepmother agreed as long as we took our phones and flashlights. Everybody referred to where I used to live as a hidden utopia because it was so obscured by the woods. We headed out and went on a lonely path that cut straight through the woods with nothing around it but a stream and a tiny park. We laughed and joked and played some calm music from our phones. It was a cute little date. She stopped me suddenly and pointed at this large hill. She said she saw some cool-looking house, so we decided to crawl up the side of the hill. It was difficult since it was slippery, but we managed. There was old pottery scattered around the yard and ripped-up tires. We were standing behind an old house. It was really falling apart, and the clock tower area of the house had been burned down. Well, she gave me her hairpins, and I went around the house trying to unlock the doors, but all of the locks were filled with cement, and all the windows were either covered in spiky vines or covered up with boards. Well, we found one loose board, so I kicked through it. We slid past the board and entered the house. The floor was mushy, and it smelled really musty. With every step I took, the floor would make a squishing sound and dip under my weight. You could barely see the floor because it was covered in so much stuff. We headed toward the kitchen and looked through some of the books that had been stacked up in the kitchen, and it seemed like whoever lived there had been evicted. Yikes. That sounds like a very disturbing place to poke through, but gotta love the spirit of exploration here. Well, she called to me, and I rushed over to her panic-filled voice. We saw a skull on the ground, and then heard a door creaking open somewhere in the house. Well, we booked it. We did revisit it twice that week, just to look around and figure out its mysteries. We looked it up on Google Maps, but Google couldn't find it. The third time we went there that week, it wasn't there. We crawled up the hill, and nothing was there. Everything had disappeared, including the large tree right next to the house that was practically a part of the house. We could never find the house again. It had just disappeared. And the hill was just a field of grass and flowers. I have pictures of the house on my phone, but it doesn't exist. That's pretty fascinating. I just wish that there was those photos existed along with this take. Unfortunately, I don't see them, or they're not a part of the article. But apparently they got photos of their exploration there. But soon after, it just wasn't there anymore. And these are the weirdness. It's like, why? Was it haunted? Was it some kind of trans-dimensional shift? I don't know. I don't know, but I tell you, I don't think I would have ever gone inside. I don't know. If you're standing around a dilapidated, rotting structure, first of all, you got to know it's not safe. And then when you're walking on the floor and it's mushy, it's like, well, do they have a basement? If the floor is mushy enough, you go right through. Are you going to end up trapped in some basement that you can't get out of? So, yeah, I mean, I have a healthy dose of curiosity. Don't get me wrong, but I also have a healthy dose of self-preservation. So my hat's off to them in their spirit of adventure. But my God, that's scary, dangerous. So next up, we got a story from another Redditor, and this is The Umbrella Goddess, which is spelled exactly like it sounds, all one word. But her story is as follows. I was studying abroad in Italy my freshman year of college, and a group of friends and I were trying to find this bus station route in Rome. We went to where Google Maps led us, and the building looked like it was an office building of some sort. So we're thinking, okay, maybe it's in the basement. So we go into this building and we get into the elevator and there's no button for the basement. So we're like, okay, maybe if we go to the top floor, we'll be able to have a vantage point to see the bus station from where we are. So we go to the top floor and walk out, and we're greeted by this woman who's standing behind the counter at what appears to be a Chinese restaurant. So we go in, and there's a couple of kids playing on the floor near her. We look around, and the windows are totally blocked out. The woman looks at us, and in a super thick Russian accent, says in English, "What are you doing here?" Sorry, that was my accent. I hope it worked. So by this time, two of us are sufficiently freaked out, but the fearless one in our group goes, "We're trying to find the bus station. Do you know where it is?" And the woman answers, "It's in the basement." And my friend says, "Well, there's no button for the basement in the elevator." And the woman says, "No, you have to take the stairs." Sorry, I'm probably reading that more like Dracula, but it's my intention to bring you the best theater I know how. So my apologies if it's kind of falling apart in the translation. So we thank her and leave super fast to go down the stairs pretty quickly, find the bus station, and get on our bus. And for whatever reason, as we're pulling away, all of us decide to look out the rear window of the bus and see if we can spot the building. But it's not there. Just a regular old bus station. To this day, we all maintain that we were in the Twilight Zone. Yeah, no doubt. Again, it seems conscious. This phenomena, for whatever reason, seems to be conscious. It can appear or disappear. And why? Again, the whys are the hard part. We don't really know. I really can't come up with anything conclusive, but I suspect it has to do with the people involved, that there's something they're picking up. Maybe it was just to tell the story. Because it seems like whatever these intelligences are, maybe they pick people based on the fact that they'll probably tell the story. And maybe this is all stuff that our ancient ancestors knew, but has somehow become lost in our modern sensibilities. And I don't know. I'm just throwing ideas at this as I go, but it is something incredibly profound. Again, I can't say that this story is absolutely 100% factual, but if it is, it's demonstrating something so incredible. And I guess it stands to teach us a lot. And maybe it's just that everything is fluid. It's not as rock solid and rigid as we're led to believe. So next up in this article is one we started hearing waves. And this comes from Redditor Dimitri Homi. And I hope I'm pronouncing that right. It's Dimitryhomie. So very cool story, but let's get into it so you can find out just what happened. I once went on holiday back to where my parents were born in India. We have a family home that is outside of moderately sized town and is very isolated. To get to our home, you have to drive out of town and then 10 minutes down a narrow road with steep drop-offs on each side that contained rice fields full of water. My cousin and I were both around 13 years old and would spend the days bored out of our minds, causing trouble. We didn't have any other kids to play with as the home was so isolated. And we couldn't walk into town. It was just too far. Sometimes my parents would take us into town and buy us toys. One day we were messing around and my uncle suggested we explored the local forest, which literally surrounded the house. I think we were annoying him. You know, I don't know. I mean, if you're not familiar, maybe these people are very familiar with India, but I'd be thinking, oh God, isn't there tigers out there? You sure you want to send your kids out to explore a forest that might have tigers in it? I don't know. Anyway, that's just me. I always err on the side of caution. So we decided to walk in a straight line as we thought this would be the easiest way to not get lost. It wasn't something we were worried about as the forest wasn't that dense, and we could see the house as we began walking in. Two things about India. It's blindingly hot and unbelievably humid. After an hour or so of exploring, we were tired and decided to head back. We just turned around and walked straight back the way we came. An hour later, however, we were not at the house. At this point, we were deliriously thirsty and hungry. We were spoiled kids and not used to this level of physical labor. Another hour passed and we still didn't arrive home. We started hearing waves like we were near a beach. My cousin was perplexed as there was no sea, river, lake anywhere near us. I just thought we must have gone really far, but was excited in my own way that the beach must mean that there'll be other people there. We eventually reached a clearing, and we were both open-mouthed at the beauty of the scene before us. There was a huge waterfall. If anyone has been to Plitvice in Croatia, it was a very similar size. It was incredible. I didn't want to blink in case I missed a second of it. We were on the bank and the waterfall was above us to the side, and next to us were mangoes falling off the trees, some green, some orange. The water looked so clear and cool, I can't describe it very well, but I'm quite well traveled, have been to over 20 countries, and I've never seen something so perfect. We immediately ran to the river and drank, which is something we knew definitely never to do in India. This water, however, looked so clean and tasted fine. My cousin sliced up some mangoes and we sat on the banks talking and chilling, content with just being lost for a while. Well, as time dragged on, we realized we needed to find home. My cousin suggested I climb a tall tree next to us, so I did, and from the top, I could see a faint clearing that I assumed was our house. We walked all the way back and reached home about half an hour later. My uncle had been going bonkers with worry, thinking we had gotten lost. He was so happy we were back before my parents got home and rushed me to go to shower. When I came out, we excitedly told my uncle about our discovery of the waterfall and the mangoes. My uncle laughed and said there were no waterfalls or rivers in the area, and mangoes didn't grow in this area. We assumed he was just ignorant and told our housekeeper about it. And he also confirmed there's no streams, rivers, waterfalls in the entire area. When I got home, I immediately checked Google Maps and couldn't find any body of water from the satellite view. I Googled the area name and waterfall. Nothing. I even called my cousin and asked him to recall what happened that date. Without me saying anything, he confirmed everything. I've even been back once since then, and I haven't found the place, despite doing everything in my power, including hiring other local people just to check. It was an incredible, beautiful location that I'm sure if it was found, it would become a tourist area or a national park. Hopefully one day somebody will find it. Wow. So that's an incredible story. And that one, you can kind of see a reasoning behind it. It's like, why did that pop up? Well, these kids were lost and getting scared. They were thirsty and hungry, and somehow this amazing oasis just seemed to leap into life for them. I know it may sound way out there, but I mean, what other reason could there be? Especially when no such place exists, according to all the local people. I think sometimes, well, not sometimes, I think always there's an intelligence to the world around us. Not speaking of people, but I'm speaking of places, that maybe there's a sentience to the natural world, and maybe those kind of places lie hidden until there's a need for them to appear. And I know it might be way out there, and maybe it just doesn't make any sense at all. I don't know. But I try to find reasoning and logic to this stuff because I really want to understand. That's my journey through the paranormal, is just trying to understand what are we dealing with. But it's truly just seems, for any lack of a better term, magical. And I think it's wonderful. I love the idea that maybe these places are out there and can exist when people need them to. I don't know. It's almost a real Hogwarts kind of a idea, but you never know. They do say truth is stranger than fiction, so I wouldn't be surprised, to be honest with you. Now the next one is rather shorter. It's from a Redditor by the name of Skeleton Skellers, and ends with a Z, Skellers. So I often find it very clever. A lot of the names used on Reddit and stuff. I think it's amazing. People are incredibly creative. So, yep, this is Skeleton Skellers experience, and it's shorter, as I mentioned. So let's dive into this one. It says, when I went on a road trip to see my family in Texas, I stopped at a gas station to fill up and get some coffee, as it was about 2 a.m. I went inside, and there was a man at the counter smiling as normal. They didn't sell coffee, surprisingly, so I settled with an energy drink. I exited the store, got into my car, and drove off as you normally would. As soon as I left the parking lot of the dimly lit gas station, my gas tank was back on low. My energy drink was gone, as if it vanished out of the cup holder. And when I looked into the rearview mirror, there was no gas station. I turned around, and all there was Texas land. I still have no clue what happened, even to this day. Yeah, that's a freaky one, because for all intents and purposes, the visit didn't happen, except for the memory of it. So, is it really a disappearing place, or was it I don't know. I don't mean a memory glitch in that just some psychological thing. I think that almost like an illusion was cast to this person or brought to this person, and nothing they experienced was really real, but they felt like it was. Maybe it's just delirium. I don't know. Not sure how tired this person was, but that's kind of stuff that could definitely wake you up for a while. So very cool story. Very different from most of the other ones. It seems that the other experiences seem to truly have happened in a very physical way, as well as a, energetic and memory kind of way. But this one seems almost like a delusion or an illusion that was given to them. And that's pretty strange. It's very unique. So great story. So next up is a story from a Redditor, The Forlorn Knight. And it's titled, My Friend and I Came Across an Abandoned Neighborhood Development. And let's get into the story. When I was in middle school in the late 90s, I really got into model rockets. Living in the city, there weren't too many places you can shoot them off and expect to get them back. So my friend and I scoped out a few spots on our bikes and came across an abandoned neighborhood development. The roads were poured and everything, but they gave up actually building any houses, so there was lots of open space. So we went back to my house, keeping track of landmarks. Almost said landmines. Keeping track of landmarks to find it again. Old mobile service station, dollar store, Texas Hammer billboard. So we got my rocket stuff and a skateboard because we were going to be stupid, and had my stepdad drive us back, and we found it easily, like 10 minutes or so away. We set off some rockets, strapped some engines to that skateboard to see if it would rocket off. It didn't, and had a great time. Well, it got late, and I was out of engines, so we headed back. A week later, I got more engines and a new rocket, so we decided to go back. We rode on our bikes around 2 hours, but never found it. We backtracked over and over and found nothing. No turnoff road, no suddenly erected fence, nothing. So we went to my house and had my stepdad drive us again, and he couldn't find it. I looked every so often just to see if maybe I could find it again for years after, until we eventually moved away. But I never did find it. Wow. That's another great one. Why? I don't know. Again, this is one of those strange ones. It's like, why did this appear? Maybe it is like they had a need, and there was nothing to meet their need, and so something appeared. I don't know. That's an interesting thought. I can't pretend to really know for sure, but I just like throwing ideas at this stuff. You guys will have to let me know what you think. Why do you think this stuff happens? Is there some intelligence to it? Is it just random open closes of some weird interdimensional reality? Or what do you guys think about this stuff? And, we got some more stories, but I just want to throw it out there. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this because it is very strange. Next up is a story that comes from Redditor NoodleToon, and it's, I came to an enormous clearing that I'd never seen before. So let's dive into this one and find out just what's going on here. It happened when I was in high school, circa 1999. Back then, before I had a cell phone, and certainly before I had a smartphone. I wish I could have taken a picture, but part of me feels like maybe I somehow wouldn't have been allowed to have this experience if I had had a camera with me. That's an interesting take. So this person seems to acknowledge that maybe these things are very intentional. I was walking my dog in some woods near my house. I was pretty familiar with these woods, as my dog in there went in there often. One day I came to an enormous clearing that I'd never seen before, like a giant field smack in the middle of the woods. And it was entirely blanketed with yellow daffodils. Thousands and thousands of them. My dog loved it and romped and frolicked in the daffodils as I took in the beauty and left completely awed, like I was witnessing something magical. No one else was around, and it really felt special, like the experience was just for me. I went back the next day. I searched and searched, but could not find that clearing nor a single daffodil. Wow. It's kind of funny. I honestly didn't pre-read these. So I think this person's take is very, very profound. Like this experience was meant for them, whoever NoodleToon is. I think that's incredibly profound. And I think there's merit to that thought. Like several of these experiences seem like they were very uniquely directed at the individuals that experienced them. The big why, we don't know. But I think when you get to witness something as profound as these experiences, you've got to feel pretty special. I mean, you've got to feel like you've peaked beyond a veil of possibility into the impressive nature of the universe, which is, I think, unlimited. I don't think we can just categorize things in our comfort zone, because clearly things happen, as we discussed throughout the whole scope of the Paranormal Portal. Things happen that don't fit into the normal. That's why we call them paranormal. But yeah, it does seem that the people that experience these things, for whatever number of reasons, were supposed to. And I realize that's kind of a throwaway statement, but I think it's much more profound than just the words themselves would relay. Like, they were meant to see this. Maybe they'd earned it somehow. Maybe it was just that they would tell others and share these stories through these message boards. Who knows? And just by having that awareness out there for those that maybe need it. Because I'll tell you what, living in a mundane world for me would be absolutely excruciating. So I love talking about this stuff because I love the idea that there's discovery. There's incredible things to learn and understand about this universe that we're living in. So I think it's incredibly profound. So that was the conclusion of that initial article that we'd covered through the last Disappearing Places show and this one. But we're going to jump into a second one that was from ranker.com. And the article is called "People Describe When Places They Visited Inexplicably Disappeared." So it's the same topic idea, and it's the same format where, in this case, the author is Rachel Sowerby. Sourberry, Sowerby, I guess. I'm sorry. And it was last updated December 20th of 2021. So again, please check out Ranker, because there's so much out there that is bound to be of interest. No matter what you're into, there's going to be Ranker articles that correspond to your interests, and you're going to find some great information and stories. But the collection here is 20 lists, unsettling true stories. And so it definitely fits in with our mode here. But I'm going to read the first story from this list. And this is one that I've shared on my live YouTube show as well. I think maybe a couple times, to be honest with you. I've been doing this since 2016, so I've covered a lot of material through the years. And I don't know that I've always found it on this list or on this page. I have thousands of sources that I go through for, information on the paranormal and the weirdness that we live in. But the first one in this storyline is Time Loop Diner. And it's allegedly from Redditor Art of the Deals. And it's all one word, Art of the Deals. And let's get into this. I know this story's great, so I wanted to close with this one because it's really profound. So back when I was younger, I was kind of a terrible kid. To deal with being just totally unmanageable, as well as being a child of two narcissists, the decision was made that I would work on a huge ranch deep in the sticks of Arizona. Should be noted that I was a pretty accomplished equestrian rider at this time, so ranching wasn't really out of the realm of what I could do. On cattle drives, it was not unusual to stumble upon houses, encampments, and even whole towns in the middle of nowhere. These all had their own movie-like situations that came out of them, but one in particular I will never forget. Here we are on another cattle drive, this time pretty far into it. And we've been out in the desert, if I remember correctly, easily three or more weeks. And we stumble upon this town in the middle of a canyon that is picture perfect. In addition, lo and behold, there's a diner. Like an old, totally chromed out East Coast diner. We've not eaten anything really of substance for a while, and the head wrangler promised me a milkshake for my birthday. Well, I was beyond stoked, if not a little weirded out, but honestly, after you spend enough time in the wilderness of the United States, nothing really surprised me. So we leave behind some of our mates to watch the cattle, who are resting in the shade after getting over this rocky wash, and hike into the canyon to go to the diner. The second we set foot in the diner, The head guy, this older cowboy, who's the head of all of us, grabs my arm. This place is packed, and everyone is wearing odd clothing, like stuff from maybe the 40s or 50s. My head wrangler, T, is a really tough guy who, from ranching for his entire life, had definitely seen some stuff. T grabs my arm as I'm just focused on a milkshake and about to go grab a booth, when I realize everyone is just staring at us. And there's a really strange feeling in the air. Now, we were used to getting looks all the time from being smelly and dirty, but these people had these almost fear or shock. T and the two others with us slowly back out of the diner, dragging me in tow, and we immediately go back to our site and leave without a word. I was so confused, I just went along with all of it. To this day, I have no idea what that place was, or if we stumbled through a time warp or what. But my wrangler later told me that night after we were away from there that he felt like we had stepped back in time. Like truly stepped back in time. And that place was stuck in some sort of loop. And if we stayed there, we would get stuck too. T never really spoke a lot, nor was he to be messed with. He also had a mean sweet tooth, despite having almost no teeth. So for him to have reacted that way really shook me up. I have no idea if what he told me is true. There were pretty rough guys who would definitely teased and pulled pranks. But I will never forget the look of those people in that immaculate diner. Yeah, that's definitely not what you'd like to find out in the middle of nowhere. I mean, it sounds like it's impressive and maybe the right time for them to find that place, but it didn't sound like they were very welcome there. If the whole place just kind of turns and looks at you. It's interesting, the idea of a place being lost in time. I think there was a Twilight Zone episode like that, or some subsequent show that I remember from years back of somebody just being kind of stuck there with their car, and how the people that were there were in this 1800s mode. There was no cars, no automation of any kind, and they had a flat or something, and couldn't go any further, but this town just kind of appeared. So I don't know. Again, is it true? Well, it's represented as true. So that's the best I can give you as far as background on the story. I don't know. I wasn't there, and I haven't interviewed any of these people personally, but if it is real, certainly the time slip stuff comes up quite often. Especially there's apparently an alleyway or a street in Liverpool where several people have stepped back in time and found that they were suddenly in surroundings that were not of the current area at all. In fact, probably from, the 50s or earlier. And then suddenly we're back in the normal time just by a matter of, usually movement is involved. It seems like stepping out of a place and then looking back again, and everything kind of resets to the correct time, which maybe gives us an insight into some of this phenomena. Like maybe these are just time slips, in a sense, and people are able to wander in and out and hopefully get back to where they're supposed to be, I guess. I mean, sometimes believe me, that, with life in this day and age, it can be pretty confusing, and a time slip sounds pretty attractive. Can we just get to the good parts, please? But anyway, it's all a matter of a journey and such, but I think these stories are incredible. Again, I don't pretend to know the nature of what they are. I don't pretend to know why they happen. I don't pretend to know why the people they happen to experience these things. But again, I do think that there's an intelligence to it. I think these moments are supposed to be experienced. Again, if you believe in the veracity of these stories or the claims in such, I don't pretend to know. But if only just a couple of those stories are real, like 2 out of the stories that I just read to you, if one of them are real, and the rest are just creative fabrications of some writers, then still something amazing has happened and something profound is going on in the world around us. Now, in light of the fact that yes, people experience invisible spiritual-like beings. People experience 10 to 12-foot hairy beings out in the woods. Some people experience these werewolf-like dogmen beings. And UFOs, lights in the sky, etc., etc. So it seems pretty clear that the world around us is still got a whole bunch of unknown. And that's the journey, right? That's why we're doing this, just to look through the glass, try to understand it, and in some cases, our own experiences. I don't know. I think these people are incredibly fortunate to have seen these things. And I got to tell you, there would be a strong part of me that would be wanting to look a little further in some of these. Like the diner. Well, would you have been okay to sit down and have a meal, or was that the trap? I mean, would that be when you get stuck in that same place? I don't know. Maybe. And I don't know. Obviously, it didn't sound like this was the setting that some community had existed in sometime in the distant past, but I guess we just don't know. It just sounds like some canyon in Arizona, so I don't know what the experience was, if there was a town that had existed there that no longer existed. Maybe it's got wiped out for any number of tragic reasons, and this was just some echo of it. But yeah, again, it's hard to say. But I'll tell you what, I love this journey. I love the idea of exploring these possibilities, and I'm a believer. I can't say that every one of these stories I'm sure is real, but I think there is definitely room in my paradigm for these to have been real, at least several of them. But again, you be the judge. The show will never be about convincing you that things exist that you don't believe do, or telling you that what you do believe doesn't exist. I just like to discuss the phenomena. I like to discuss the ideas. And this is an incredible journey we're on. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this. I hope you found these stories enjoyable and interesting. And I sincerely would love to hear your thoughts, because I don't know. I don't pretend to have the answers. And I don't think necessarily anybody does. But I can tell you, every one of you out there has a valid opinion. And every one of you out there may, have incredible thoughts that I'd never occurred to me. So I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you wouldn't mind emailing me, paranormalportalradio@gmail.com. I'd love to hear what you have to say. So anyway, guys, that's going to about wrap it up for this week. I hope you guys have a wonderful week, and stay tuned. Don and I are about to head to Utah in order to attend Phenomicon, which is a conference down in Utah. And we're going to hopefully get some fantastic interviews. Last year when we went, we interviewed Thomas Winterton and James Vieira and Stacy Brown Jr., and had a great time talking to these people. Of course, Thomas Winterton is from The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch. James Vieira is the History Channel's Search of Monsters, and Giants, rather. Sorry. He does some incredible talks. If you ever get a chance to catch James Vieira giving one of his talks, definitely attend, because he has some amazing insights and knowledge, and they're all just wonderful people. So we're going to be going back down there. Maybe we'll hook up with Thomas again if we get a chance, and do another interview with him, and perhaps others from the cast of Skinwalker Ranch, as well as Expedition Bigfoot, and we're going to have a good time. So watch for those interviews coming up. But anyway, remember, we love you all. Be good, be kind, be nice. Take care of each other, help each other out. Find the magic in every day, and remember to laugh as much as you can. And until next time, take care of yourselves. All right, everybody, that's going to wrap it up for us today. So hope you guys enjoyed the show, and thank you again so much for all your love and support. And remember, if you want to follow the Paranormal Portal, probably the easiest way is to head over to paranormalportal.net. And that's the homepage for the Paranormal Portal. And you'll find links to all of our different social media and sites and information about the shows, including our YouTube channel, which is youtube.com/paranormalportal. Or just look for Paranormal Portal on Google or whatever search engine, and you'll find links to our social media such as Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. So we're kind of all over the place, and we're spreading as well as we can. But anyway, thank you so much for the love and support. Y'all take care, and remember, we love y'all. Be good, be kind, be nice. Take care of each other, help each other out, find the magic in every day, and remember to laugh as much as you can. Until next time.